Next, a post-inaugural comedy show hosted by the National Journal and the Hotline. The nearly 20 performers include members of Congress and professional comedians. During this 2.5-hour event, there is language that some may find objectionable.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the host of tonight's festivities, Tony Snow, the host of the Tony Snow Show on Fox News Radio. Hello, there we go. Like how I did that? That was really cool. I want to welcome everybody to a night of comedy that is sponsored by the Political Hotline. Boy, they turned it down. Thank you. Now, come on, this is pathetic. Okay. Here's the deal. I want every one of you to practice a little bit of compassion tonight, because there are some people who are going to come up here and die like wounded animals. And I want you to understand that it is your human responsibility to reach out to these people and buck them up with laughter and cheering. You got it? No. I want to, come on. I want to hear it. These people are our guests. All right? You're ticking me off. I mean, I want to make sure everybody, can you guys cheer? Let's just hear it. Come on. No, come on. All right, middle section. Let's go. Over here. All right, let's go. Ready, yo? Come on. Oh, no. A lot of you probably been to inaugural parties, and you think you're supposed to be polite. But in this case, I really want to hear a lot of noise, because, again, you're going to have some professional comedians, but you're going to have... How many of you are from out of town? Just a quick cheer. Anybody? Yeah, you know, they laughed about my name. Wait till tomorrow. For those of you who are visiting, let me just tell you, Washington has a very unique snow removal system. It's commonly known as July. So just get used to it. You'll be paying $400 a night for the rest of your natural lives. All right, so here's what's going to happen tonight. You are going to be regaled with comedy from brave people, some of whom are professionals, all of whom have worked very hard. So one more time, I just want to hear it. Let's get real loud. I want you to practice. Come on, let's go. Noise! My work is finished. And now, with equal vigor, please welcome Jim Hartz, well known to many from his days at ABC and now president of the Will Rogers Museum.
Thank you and good evening. I've been asked to come here to represent Will Rogers. As you've probably noticed from your programs, this is the 125th anniversary of his birth. I'm the chairman of the board of the Will Rogers Museum out in Oklahoma. That's where I grew up, and I'm privileged to go back there 4 or 5 times a year to sign off on all the nice work that all the people who work for me do. I'm here to tell you a little bit about Will Rogers. They've given me 2 or 3 minutes. Is there anybody in here who's over 85 years old? 85 or better? Well, there's 1 or 2. You have to be that old, really, to remember Will Rogers. Unfortunately, at the height of his career, he was 56 years old. He was killed in a plane crash in a terrible accident up in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. You were with him. We've been looking for you. We want to know what happened. Was Wiley drinking or not? Will started off his career in the early 1900s as a trick rope artist, and there are lots of guys who are in that business today who say that he was the best there ever was. And between roping tricks, he started talking, and he became America's greatest talker. And I suppose by the time he died, he was the best known and best loved American, and maybe the best loved person in the whole world. He, at the time of his death in 1935, was the biggest draw in Hollywood. He was the highest paid actor. He had a weekly radio program. He had written 12 books. We have out in our museum, which is bigger than a lot of presidential libraries, all of his writings, about 2 million words altogether. And he had a weekly radio program. He was a regular columnist in the New York Times, on the front page every day, syndicated in 600 papers. When he was killed, it was banner headlines all over the country. And his body was brought back from Alaska by Charles Lindbergh, and 100,000 people paid their respects in California at the time. NBC and CBS were radio networks at the time. Television hadn't come along yet, but both of them went off the air for 30 minutes in tribute to him, and it's hard to imagine that happening for anybody alive today. Easily, he was the most popular man in the first half of the century. He was so popular, and I called out to the museum and asked them to send this to me because I think it is so wonderful. In 1928, there were a lot of people who very seriously wanted him to run for president. The candidates, if you recall, or somebody here who probably does, were Herbert Hoover and Al Smith. In 28, Life magazine announced only half tongue-in-cheek that they were looking for a candidate who would run for president as on an honest, courageous, and reasonably intelligent platform. They said, "We have been conducting a private straw poll to ascertain whether anyone believed such a candidate was possible. The question which we asked was this: if you could cast aside all party prejudice, who would be your ideal choice for president?" And the answer, according to Life magazine, was a large group of representative Americans took the form of an overwhelming majority for Will Rogers. And why not? Again, quoting from the magazine, Will, to begin with, is an American, equipped as he is with a generous supply of genuine Indian blood. He's a lot closer to 100% Americans than most of the people who brag about it. In fact, Will said, "My folks didn't come over on the Mayflower, they met the boat." They said in the second place, Will Rogers is a humorist. If elected, he would be the first president in 62 years who was funny intentionally. I was talking with a pal of mine today about that line, and he said, "Who would that be?" And I said, "Well, it's got to be Lincoln." And we didn't have our hand calculator, so we couldn't figure out exactly who it was. But I remember one of my favorite stories about Lincoln. When he was president here, he was over near where I live in Alexandria, Virginia, reviewing some troops. And the commander at the time was William Tecumseh Sherman. And Sherman told the story later that Lincoln's horse got to bucking and kicking and got his back leg caught up in the stirrup. And Lincoln got him calmed down and said to the horse, "You know, if you want to get on, I'll get off." Life magazine went on to say, in the third place, Will Rogers has had wider experience as a public servant than any man who's run for the office. Not only has he been mixed up in politics, he was mayor of Beverly Hills, California, by the way, but he's also a veteran of 13 campaigns in the Ziegfeld Follies, which is a lot more than can be said for Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, or even Al Smith. In the fourth place, Will Rogers has seen something of the world. He knows more about foreign relations than do all the 18 members of the Senatorial Foreign Relations Committee. He was famous as an ambassador of goodwill when Lindbergh was still toting mail between Chicago and St. Louis. Magazine said there will be objections to Will Rogers' candidacy. Indeed, most of the qualifications mentioned should be enough to disqualify him under the rules that usually obtain in politics. For instance, the fact that he's set foot on foreign soil and has made friends with Englishmen, Russians, Mexicans, and French. And similar undesirables will be used by many as a serious argument against him. He said the fact is that he's a comedian will hurt him beyond all question. The American voters like to laugh at their politicians and not with them. He said if Will Rogers has more of a platform than that, he can write it himself. Well, Will wrote back and he said, "Every candidate always says, why, there's dozens of men more competent to fill this office than I am." Will said, "Well, I don't feel that way at all. Looks like you boys were inspired when you made your choice." For after all, it's only the office of candidate that I'm accepting. You know, if you don't take it near as good, it doesn't take near as good a man to be a candidate as it does to hold the office. And that's why we wisely defeat more than we elect. Incidentally, he said that he was thrown out as mayor of Beverly Hills when he came out against polygamy. As for times like this, Will said, he said, I generally give the party in power, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, the more digs because they are generally doing the country more damage. He said, I don't think it's fair to jump too much on the fellow who is down. He's not working. He is only living with hopes of getting back on the graft in another 4 years. He said he loved to play audiences here in Washington because they were so politically savvy. He said, if I don't have to explain the jokes, we'll get out of here twice as fast. Thank you and good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the Hill, Albert Isley.
Boy, this is a great crowd. This is the biggest crowd I've seen in one place since the last Howard Dean rally in Iowa. I'm reminded of Governor Ann Richards of Texas when she was here for a gridiron dinner a few years ago. She said, she looked out in the crowd of well-dressed tuxedo, white tie people, and she said, so this is what you people in Washington do on a Saturday night, huh? I agreed to come tonight for two reasons. One, because Tim, because they promised me there'd be plenty of food, and it's getting harder and harder to find a free meal in this Bush economy. Second reason is that I figured I should pay Hotline back somewhat for all the items I steal from them all the time. David Rear, who's a fellow Minnesotan of mine, head of the Beer Wholesalers Association, has donated, I think, 40 cases of beer tonight, so Minnesota's contribution is almost as great as the last time Hubert Humphrey made a speech here. I was a little late getting here tonight. I took a cab. I discovered what Tom Foley once said, that the most exciting thing in Washington is seeing Washington for the first time with a cab driver who's also seeing it for the first time. I'm glad to see Curtis Robinson here from Corvus Communications. He's an old friend of mine. He and I share two common characteristics. We are the only two normal people that Hunter Thompson considers friends. And let me tell you, Curtis is not that normal. Tim Howe's invited a lot of people tonight, and including some of the Bush administration's new cabinet members. He invited Alberto Gonzales, the nominee for the Justice Department, and while he couldn't come, he sent a note. He said, Dear Tim, I'm sorry I can't join you for the Hotline Comedy Show to hear you reap ridicule on the Bush administration, but you can be sure I'll be listening in. I came here 40 years ago from St. Paul as a Washington correspondent for the St. Paul paper. My office was right down the street in the National Theater building. And this is I've told people, a lot of people this, but I'm planning to step down this summer and write some books and do some other things. But the real reason is I decided that Washington is not big enough for both me and the Wonkette. This is a tough time for Democrats in this town. I was covering the inauguration yesterday, and I noticed a tall man in the stands with tears streaming down his face, and I went up to him and I said, "What's wrong, Senator Kerry?" The security in this town is incredible yesterday. I mean, this is the heaviest security I've ever seen since the last time I went to Reagan National and tried to get and board a plane. I went through security, and they gave me such a thorough checking that the security man came up to me after I got through, and he said, "I'm sorry to tell you, sir, but you have an enlarged prostate." I must say, though, I'm very impressed by the Bush administration's new slogan, "To the victor belongs the spoils." Bush's speech yesterday reminded me of when he was asked before the election if he was concerned about not getting reelected, and he said, "No, I've always been misunderestimated." Vice President Cheney has been more visible than normal this week. He went on the Don Imus show yesterday morning. I do a commentary on Imus every morning, so I was there, and he he quietly gave Israel the green light to take out Iraq's nuclear installations. Then at the inaugural luncheon yesterday, Trent Lott told a joke, and Cheney told reporters afterwards, he said, I had a little scare there. He said, I felt a tightness in my chest, I started gasping for air, and my heart was beating irregularly. Then I realized it's called laughing. Bush administration is making a big push to privatize Social Security and other government agencies. I hear they just sold the Lincoln Memorial. From now on, it will be known as the Ford Mercury Lincoln Memorial. It's a good thing the inaugural and this event are being held before this weekend, because, as you know, the National Weather Service is just forecasting snow and sleet tomorrow into Sunday, which is as much as 4 to 8 inches of snow. That is considered almost as a natural disaster here as a tsunami. And I see the district's already declared a snow emergency. That's nothing for people like me, natives of Minnesota. That's not even enough to make us put on our overshoes. But as Bob Berglund used to say, in Minnesota we have 2 seasons, 10 months of winter and 2 months of tough sledding. It really gets cold in Minnesota, I'll tell you. In northern Minnesota, in the town in northern Minnesota, this week they recorded a temperature of 56 degrees Fahrenheit below zero in the town of Embarrass, Minnesota. And that probably tells you why they named that town that way. It gets so cold that people there actually suffer frostbite and they lose parts of their bodies. There are people in northern Minnesota walking around who are missing fingers and ears and toes. And when you go into, this is a Finnish area, a lot of Finnish immigrants there. When you go into a sauna, you actually see people who don't have any, well, use your imagination. It gets so cold in Minnesota that sometimes your words freeze, and when you're talking to somebody outside, they freeze and fall to the ground. You have to pick them up and thaw them out so the person can hear what you said. That's a true story. Humor, as Will Rogers pointed out, is a very important part of politics, and a lot of times we fail to realize how important humor is and what an integral part of politics it is, which is why Will Rogers' contribution was so great. Now that I've warmed up the crowd for Marsha Blackburn and Dan Boren, I want to say thank you for your attention and thanks for coming.
Please welcome, representing the 7th Congressional District of Tennessee, Representative Marsha Blackburn.
Hi there. Welcome to the Warner Theater. How's everybody doing tonight? Good? Good. I'm Marsha Blackburn. I'm from the great state of Tennessee, just in case you can't tell. And I'm supposed to be here to entertain you tonight, but I'm not funny. I'm not a funny joke teller in the least. I find that I am usually the subject of jokes. I am a vertically challenged, blonde woman driver from the South who happens to be a politician. So instead of comedy, I'm here tonight to try to help broker a little understanding between the great American South and that liberal frozen wasteland we call the North. The presidential election made it very clear to me, and probably to a lot of y'all out there, that a lot of the Northerners just don't get us Southerners, and I want to help bridge the divide. I want to be a uniter, not a divider. And I want to help a lot of you make sense out of the next 4 years. Anybody need help making sense out of the next 4 years? So, well, I'm here to help. And what, yeah, you probably need it. So I'm going to give all of you folks a lesson in Southern speak, because I know that you're going to need some help making sense out of what George Bush is going to be telling you. And I'm an expert at Southern speak. I grew up in Mississippi, raised a family in Tennessee, and now I live in Minnie Pearl's house right outside of Nashville. We've still got that price tag hanging on the front porch. Come see us. And years ago, when my husband and I bought that house, she said, honey, let me tell you something right now. If you'll just love people, they're going to love you back. But I tell you what, Minnie never worked one day in this city. So now let's get on with our lesson on Southern speak, and here is the concept. Y'all is singular. All y'all, that's plural. And really. Now, doesn't y'all sound a whole lot better than you guys? Don't you think so? Y'all's better, yeah. And when we say, how's your mama and them? We don't care. We don't want to know. It's just our way of saying hello, and if you ever start to tell us, we're going to say, really? Well, girl, shut up. One of our favorites in the South is, I do declare, and it means absolutely nothing or anything at all. It's kind of like filler, you know, kind of like one of Ted Kennedy's policy speeches, so you tolerate it. Good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. That Southern speak for come hell or high water, honey, ain't gonna be a thing gonna keep us from watching NASCAR on Saturday. Going whole hog, it means we're going after the whole thing. It is not like Bill Clinton at an all-you-can-eat buffet. And last, anytime anybody says something extremely stupid, we offer a very sympathetic, bless his heart. But this is one of our favorite phrases, and it's a double-edged sword. Anytime we've got some really great, juicy gossip, we preface the whole thing, well, honey, just bless his heart. So, this is how Southern speak goes in action. You ready? Hi, y'all. How you doing? How's your mama and them? Woo. Really? Well, shut your mouth. I do declare, good Lord willing, creek don't rise. This year, we are going to lower your taxes, and we are going to get government off your back and out of your pocket. And I mean, we are doing it this year. We are going whole hog on this thing. Those Democrats, I tell you what, they cannot get it done. They just don't get it. God bless their little bitty hearts. Now, if you are still a little bit confused and you need a little bit more help, let me recommend a few of our classic country songs. And let me add, these are real songs. Song number 1, Drop Kick Me, Jesus, Through the Goalpost of Life. Song number 2, Her Teeth Were Stained, But Her Heart Was Pure. Number 3, My Everyday Silver Is Plastic. Now, this may all sound like Greek to you, but to all of us Southerners, we understand everybody, and we know what every bit of that means. We really are a bunch of God-fearing, freedom-loving, flag-waving, tobacco-chewing, guitar-picking, country music-singing NASCAR fans. And when it comes to taxes, we believe if 10% is good enough for God, it is damn sure good enough for the government. So, go ahead. Come on, join us. Throw a little y'all in there every once in a while, because we're just going to be blessing your little bitty hearts. Night-night.
And now proudly upholding the Democratic banner from the 2nd Congressional District of Oklahoma, Representative Dan Boren.
Oh, I was hoping she was going to mess up. Oh, my staff is fired. My first week as a freshman member of Congress, you get all these invitations, and I thought this sounded really fun. You know, all these great comedians, and here I am in front of hundreds of people. I had my staff today come and type up a list of jokes, and let me share a few of them with you. Let's see, I'm going to read actually the speech that they started out with. It said, "The Hotline folks asked me to invoke the spirit of Will Rogers from the perspective of a fellow Oklahoman. I was thinking that I could either do some lasso tricks and a comedy routine or just give a speech. Maybe it's a good thing that security confiscated my lasso at the airport, because you know that what they say, give someone enough rope and he will hang himself. That's especially true for politicians. So I guess I have to settle for a speech." They're fired. They're absolutely fired. I got 1,200 resumes when I was elected, so there are a lot of Democratic staffers who are looking for jobs right now. So I went back to my 800 square foot apartment. It's about 22 degrees inside, and I typed up some notes. It's really hard to go after these great comedians. You know, when I was running for office, I would have to go after, you know, these Senate candidates. We had a big U.S. Senate race in our state of Oklahoma. Tom Coburn, who prevailed in the race. And, yes, Tom. He, you know, he was a doctor. He delivered babies. And one night we were at an event, and he got up, and he started giving a great speech, and everyone was really excited, and his beeper went off. And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to leave. I've got to deliver a baby." Women were weeping in the audience. And I got up. I was like, "Hey, I can deliver a pizza, but I can't deliver a baby." No, it's great to be here tonight. It's great to be here with, thank the folks of Hotline. And as mentioned before, I'm also a Democrat. Thank you. Will Rogers said, to be a Democrat, you have to be an optimist. To stay a Democrat, you have to be a humorist. And when friends call back home and I tell them, you know, the Republicans are in the White House, they're in the Senate, they're in the House, you have to have a sense of humor when you're up here in Washington. So, you know, Will and other comedians used to always say that laughter leads to listening. And, you know, I'm in the middle of an engagement process. I just got engaged. Thank you. And I remember my old bachelor days. I come from the state legislature, and I remember one time I was driving home from session, and I got a telephone call, and the sheriff's department called and said, "The alarm's going off at your house. You've got to immediately come to the house." So I started speeding up, 75, 85, 90, and hoping any law enforcement officials aren't listening right now. But anyway, got to the house, and my next door neighbor was the assistant district attorney. He was there with a shotgun. I live out in the country. We live in Oklahoma. And the sheriff's department was there. And they said, "Dan, we've just averted a break-in. We went into your house. Captain Crunch was spilled all over the floor. There were clothes everywhere. Drawers were open. The place was a mess. We must have just missed them." And I looked around. I said, "Boy, this is how I left it just a little bit earlier." But that's really an illustration. I used to give that story before I would start a speech and actually talk about the real issues. And, you know, that's the great thing of laughter. A sense of humor is the greatest common denominator. And Will Rogers had a great sense of humor. He entertained presidents from TR to FDR. He rose to national celebrity, but he never forgot where he came from. I represent the 2nd District of Oklahoma, Claremore, Oklahoma, where Will Rogers came from, and he never forgot where that was. As Oklahomans, we put his statue outside the entrance of the House chamber to keep an eye on Congress. Hope he hasn't been watching lately. It's been pretty ugly. But, you know, in 1927, the National Press Club named Will Rogers America's Congressman at Large. But I find that ironic because Will always said, "I've lived my life so that I would never become a congressman." He lived up to his word. He never became a congressman, but he became a statesman. And above all else, he was an Oklahoman. And he makes me proud to be American. Thank you.
And now from the nation, David Korn.
Thanks. I was told there'd be no humor here tonight, and I'm here to make good on that promise. No, I'm really happy to be here tonight, or as John Kerry would say, who among us doesn't fancy public spectacles, large public spectacles of amusement and merriment? And that's on a good day. It's not been a happy week for John Kerry, but it's been a good one for George Bush. So good, he's even talking to the press. Not reading it, but talking to it. It's a start. Remember, he told Brit Hume he doesn't bother to read newspapers. He likes to get his news from Condoleezza Rice and Andy Card. But he's being nice to the media. I even saw him doing Armstrong Williams' show. Now, why would he think there'd be a problem with that? Condi and Andy have been really busy lately. Actually, Armstrong Williams and George Bush are planning a TV series together. It's going to be called Pimp My Policy. I had to explain that one to my wife. I think the last time she watched MTV was Duran and Duran, the first time. Now, I sense there's going to be a different tone, a slightly different tone in the second Bush term. It's already been almost 36 hours, and Dick Cheney has yet to tell a Democrat to fuck off. Now, in one of those interviews, that Bush has done, he was asked if he regrets being a polarizing figure. He said, "I have a big responsibility to unite this country." Well, he has united at least two Americans, Mel Gibson and Michael Moore. It's true. A few days ago, Mel Gibson said he was a fan of Michael Moore. Hate to break that to you conservatives out there, but that's what he said. And he said he liked Fahrenheit 9/11. And now it turns out that the two are working on a film together. It's tentatively titled The Passion of the Cheeseburger. And if that works out, they have another one set to go. It's going to be called Jesus Christ, 4 more years of George Bush? I like that guy. WMDs, they didn't find any, not a one. Bush was asked about this reasonably enough, and he was asked particularly, what if the U.S. has to launch a preemptive war to protect itself in the future? Will it have any credibility? And Bush said, obviously, we would want to be careful about the case we presented to the rest of the world. Obviously? Asked for a comment on this, Colin Powell said, well, now he tells me. And the Bush White House did acknowledge a week or so ago that they've ended the search for weapons of mass destruction. Heck, even OJ says he's still looking. At least last time I checked. The Iraqi elections, of course, are coming up. And in all those interviews that Bush has done, he's been asked how he'll measure success in the elections. And he says success will be defined by, quote, the fact that they're voting. Funny, that's how John Kerry defined it here in the United States. Can you hear him now? No, Teresa, it's a success. They voted. Maybe not in Cleveland, but almost every place else. That last joke is dedicated to Barbara Boxer. We've had the inauguration. There were all those parties out there. You saw that they booked Kid Rock for one of the parties. Then they debooked him when they realized he wasn't a very good spokesperson for family values. It took them a while to figure that out. Calling the president's mother a whore just didn't go over well with the inauguration committee. But they did have Kelsey Grammer, Frazier, host one of the events. Now, he's been married 3 times, once to a stripper, had a child out of wedlock, a variety of substance abuse problems. Why did they use him? I have a hunch. So Rush Limbaugh wouldn't feel alone. Or was it Neil Bush? Or maybe Newt Gingrich? Now, Newt's in the news. He has a new book out. In it, he defends displaying the Ten Commandments in government buildings. And he notes that already the Ten Commandments are on display in the National Archive, the Library of Congress, the Supreme Court. Yeah, in each of those buildings it says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." Too bad that wasn't posted in the Speaker's office. He forgot number 7. I had a meaner one about Newt, but forget that. Social Security, it's much in the news at the start of the second term, and Bush knows this is a tough issue to deal with, and today he introduced the newest of his Social Security advisors, Dr. Kevorkian. Okay. I thought I had a Tom DeLay joke here, but it seems to have escaped. He's very slippery, isn't he? He's doing the same thing down in Texas. Prince Harry was in the news recently. You know, he dressed up as a Nazi, went to a party. My favorite comment on this came from Pat Buchanan. He said, "That's awful. This is just not suitable attire for outside the home." My favorite conservative these days is Jim DeMint from South Carolina, the new senator from South Carolina. Okay. He's not one of those wimpy, compassionate conservatives. No, no, no. He wants to outlaw all abortions, no exceptions, not for rape, not for incest. And he also believes that an unwed pregnant woman should not be allowed to teach in the public schools. Think about it. If a school teacher gets raped, she can't have an abortion, and she's out of work. Well, you didn't like that one too much, I can tell. You know, Bush is right. Sticking to the truth just doesn't work. And this week, Ted Kennedy called Iraq Bush's Vietnam. That's really not fair. As the old joke goes, Bush knew how to get out of Vietnam, and I have an exit strategy too. Good night.
Please welcome Juanquette Anna Marie Cox.
I like to do things the hard way, so I come up here. My name is Anna Marie Cox. I'm a blogger, or as the New York Times editors pronounced it until recently, blogueur, which, as they explained, is a term of Gaelic origin, meaning fairy tale. I'm a little nervous. I'm used to sitting at home, making my jokes in private in front of my stuffed animals and unicorn collection. I was going to bring a drink on stage. I thought that would relax me, and then I realized I could probably just siphon some bourbon from the bulge in the back of my jacket. Like the president. The twins taught us that. As you may have heard, bloggers had a big impact in the last election. We uncovered that Dan Rather is not, in fact, a war hero. That swift boats are really only moderately brisk vessels. And other facts of dubious origin. But actually, people still have a lot of questions about bloggers, and so who they are, what they do. And so I thought I'd provide some answers to some frequently asked questions by my friends in the mainstream media. What is a blogger? We've been covered by pretty much every news outlet in the world, including Cat Fancy. But if you still don't know what a blogger is, I think in a couple months Newsweek is doing a cover. Bloggers, the key to happiness or Jesus? how did you get your start? I was actually an unsuccessful freelancer, and then I had kind of Lana Turner moment. You may know she was discovered in a drugstore. My parole officer suggested I look into technical work. And so now I get paid to do all the things that actually made me a real failure as a real journalist: drinking too much, missing deadlines, making things up, having sex with my editors. I actually probably should have done more of the last thing. As it is, I really only had sex with my husband, which is great, but not a good career move. Why do you call yourself Wonquette? It's kind of, I get this a lot. Because cheapandeasyslut.com, it's my mom's site. Do you regret releasing bogus exit poll information? No. I want to release bogus exit poll information all the time. Sometimes at home, alone, I release bogus exit poll information for me and the cats. This one is from a White House press corps member. Some of the toughest questioners in the land. Does your job involve typing? Only with one hand. I'll let you think about that. Bloggers have notorious problems with accuracy. Do you get things wrong? Only when I type. Actually, this is a very pertinent and relevant question. Starting today, continuing through the weekend, Harvard is having a symposium on blogging and ethics, or blogging and credibility, which is great. Harvard having a symposium on blogging and credibility. It's a little like, I don't know, journalists putting on a comedy show. We hear that bloggers do their thing in pajamas. Do you blog in your pajamas? No. But may I blog in yours? I also get this one a lot. What's your relationship like with the Washington press, the traditional Washington press? I like to press up against as many of them as possible, and they keep running away. Except Matt Cooper, actually. He'll talk to me. I hear he's in some kind of trouble. It has to do with cake. He ate too much, didn't eat enough, it was yellow, his wife made it, was involved with the CIA. Karl Rove's fault. I actually know the story about Matt, and he's a real hero to American journalists. Or at least that's what he paid me to say. Get this one a lot too. Are you stupid or just insensitive? I don't like to choose. Do you write more about sex or gossip? Occasionally, I write about sex. This has made me somewhat popular. On television, actually, I get a lot of male anchors, Alan Murray, David Assman. They seem to expect me to have sex with them right there on set. I usually like to wait to get off camera. But as my dad says, it's probably my fault for not wearing pants. Do you get a lot of hate mail from conservatives? I actually get a lot of hate mail from everyone. And actually, when I used to write a lot during the campaign about the size of John Kerry's his endowment, massive, or as Teresa calls it, crippling. You know, she didn't used to have an accent. Liberals felt like I wasn't taking him seriously, although, believe you me, there is nothing I take more seriously. And I didn't really understand why they were so upset. I was really taking the whole he's stiff thing and giving it kind of a good spin, but it turned out it was made up, like most of his resume. Turns out he wasn't in Cambodia, and he's bald. I also get a lot of hate mail from conservatives. It's funny, for a party that believes in criminalizing unnatural sex acts, they're very quick to invoke it in a moment of passion, or anger, really, as the case may be. If you believe my correspondence, I don't just like unnatural sex acts. I like them in a plane, in a boat, in a kennel, and with a goat. I like them on top of houses, in the gutter, with tapenade and peanut butter. Obviously, that's really at best only half true. I hate peanut butter. You're most notorious for outing the Washingtonian. Who was she? The Washingtonian was a Hill staffer. She's also the only woman in Washington to ever use sex to get ahead in the job. Not true, actually. She used sex to get ahead in the day, which isn't as profitable as you'd think. Actually, in her web diary, which recounted her various exploits, including one with apparently a Bush administration appointee, she recounts what she received in return for various things. And in exchange for anal sex, she got a blender. It's not a slang term. Although I like to imagine what it might be if it were a slang term. She got a blender. I would have held out for more. Cuisinart, Viking range, lunch. Anyway, I am going to keep this short. We're at the beginning of 4 long years, and I really don't want to wear myself out so soon. Okay, that's also not true. There's nothing that can wear me out, except maybe John Kerry. Thank you.
And now, representing the 3rd Congressional District of Washington, Representative Brian Baird.
Thank you. First Lady Laura Bush and I are pleased to have you here. You know, ordinarily, I probably wouldn't come to an event about freedom of the press. I don't go for that. Then they told me it was to keep Bobby Novak's sources quiet. I said, I'll go for that. Speaking of Karl Rove, before I come out here tonight, Carl suggested maybe we should take a moment to show our respects for the victims of last month's tsunami. So would y'all please join me in bowing our heads for a moment of silence? How many of you went to the inaugural balls last night? I'll tell you, Laura and I, we had a full dance card. First, we had to go to the Rich Get Richer ball. Some of you were there, I think I saw you. The Arrogance of Power Gala. The Texas delegation had the big hats, no cattle fiesta. But I was glad to see some of my friends there. I saw, of course, Vice President Cheney. I look forward to working with him for 2 more years. Rudy Giuliani was there. I want to take a moment to thank Rudy Giuliani for, well, it was good to see Rudy there anyways. House Majority Leader Tommy DeLay, they call him the Hammer. I hear he's changing his name to the Slammer. Maybe. Might have a use for a presidential pardon in his future. Of course, my wife, Secretary Condi Rice, is there. I was sorry the Swift Boat veterans couldn't be there, but they're nevertheless going to make a documentary about everything they saw. Yesterday really was a great day for Laura and me. Parades, and got some calls from dignitaries. You know, John Kerry said foreign leaders didn't want me to get elected. I got a call from the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Manmohan Singh, and Chinese leader Mao Zedong. Pardon me a minute. Andy? I'm on stage, Andy. What? He's dead? Well, why the hell didn't somebody tell me that? Now, who's in charge over there now? Who? That's what I want to know. Who? Yeah, who? What? That's his name? What the hell kind of name is that? I'll be back. As I was saying, Mr. Hu from China called. Excuse me a moment. To reconfigure myself. Liberal media might start talking. They called to say they were glad to see I was elected. Looking forward to the millions of jobs I'm going to be sending their way. You know, I learned a lot in my first term. I learned that American people, and especially you folks in the media, heck, you'll print anything if we call it operation. So let me tell you about some of the operations we're going to do this year. First of all, we're going to continue our important work, Operation Executive Freedom, by streamlining our Constitution. Already, with the help of Speaker Denny Hastert and Billy Frist, we've eliminated Article 1. John Ashcroft's helped take 9 amendments out of the Bill of Rights. We kept that second one. The little help, some of you folks appreciate that. Little help from the Grim Reaper, I think we can get rid of the Article 3 judges as well. Streamlining government. I promised I'd do it. I keep my promises. And I tell you, we're gonna change the name of some of our operations. Operation Iraqi Freedom is going to be now known as Operation Shia Theocracy. Very proud of our successes there. We're also going to change Iraq to the new Iran. We think that'll work. We focus grouped it. And once the troops come home, our brave young men and women, we're going to introduce them to Operation Disappearing Benefits. That's how we're going to pay for Operation Big Tax Cuts. Then there's my plan to privatize Social Security. Operation Enduring Ponzi Scheme. On the education front, we're going to launch Operation Easier Grammar. You're with me on this. You see, there is way too many rules in grammar. During my first term, we made progress. We eliminated a variety of consonants. Took the R out of agriculture. Took the R out of terrorist. Now we're going to take the verb are out of the vernacular. This will help my daughters pass the No Child Left Behind test. And finally, I think I'm most proud of this. I'm most proud of this. Carl and I were talking, and we need a vision thing. Last year, you recall, I said we'd put a man on Mars. We're going to do better this year. Operation Solar Landing. It's going to put a man on the sun. Now, I know you pointy head academics and you liberal judges, you don't think we can do that. We're going at night. Have a very good evening.
And now a man who's been fired twice by the San Francisco Examiner and has had to settle for employment as the host of PBS's Livelihood, Mr. Will Durst.
Hey, who knew our congressmen were so funny? Well, I guess we all did. My name is Will Durst, and I'm a political comedian, which means sometimes there's nothing going on and I'm screwed. But not now. And I have so many people to thank. I'd like to start off by thanking George Bush For me, he's pure gold. He is. He's like if Reagan and Quayle had a kid. The other day, he said he wants to work with congressional Democrats. Yeah, the same way a 5-year-old with a magnifying glass wants to work with ants. Sent Colin Powell to Indonesia on a fact-finding mission, and I guess the deal here is Colin's going to collect some facts, come back, go to the UN, and lie about them. Tough crowd. They should have sent Terry McAuliffe. I mean, if anybody has experience raising money for a disaster. It's great to see our military down there handing out food, because you know what? We look good doing it, and we're good at it. I think that's what we should be doing to the Iraqi insurgents, feeding them. We should stuff them, supersize them like American 6th graders. And that way they're slower targets. Bigger, too. Won't be able to fit into those suicide belts anymore. Have to get themselves some suicide suspenders. I know. And of course, Bush has to watch out because it's the second term where the president always gets in trouble. It's always, Nixon had to resign, Reagan had Iran-Contra, Clinton lost the wrestling match with his libido. So I think George Bush has to be careful he doesn't make a major mistake, like, no, I don't know, attacking a country that had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11 or raising the largest budget deficit in history, or ignoring a daily briefing entitled Bin Laden determined to attack America from within, and you want to know what time and where, just turn to page 3, you freaking idiot! Sorry. I don't think he's dumb. Everybody says, I don't think he's into book learning. I think he's street smart. I just wish he'd learn how to pronounce a couple of things, like nuclear or terrorism. We're going to eradicate tourism as we know it. Tourism? Mission accomplished. He can't even pronounce the name of my governor in California. Of course, our governor can't pronounce the name of our state. California. He was great. Schwarzenegger was great at the Republican convention. Vote for Bush if you want to live. Oh, no, wait. I'm sorry. That was Cheney. Yeah. He keeps using lines from his movies. You know, I'll be back. Yeah, that was cute the first 8,000 times. He actually said, you can't handle the truth. Hey, it's not even your movie, man. That's Nicholson. That's cheating. How soon before we hear, I don't know nothing about birthing no babies. These are not the droids you're looking for. You had me at hello. And can someone tell me what the deal with the marriage of Maria Shrub? What is that? Phase 1 in a genetic experiment to breed a bulletproof Kennedy? That's the only thing that I can... No. You can't ooh and applaud at the same time. Oh. Have you seen her lately? She looks like Skeletor's great aunt. And in September, Schwarzenegger signed a bill making it illegal to have sex with corpses. Do we need a law for that? Isn't that just good grooming? Shouldn't your friends help? Bob, you've had enough. I'm sorry, friends don't let friends have sex with corpses. And speaking of John Kerry, Worst campaign ever. And that includes France in '39. Of course, it didn't help that Osama bin Laden released a videotape a week before the election endorsing Kerry. No help, less help, thank you, no. Osama, he can run, but he can't hide. Well, apparently he can run, he can hide, and he can find the time to build a modern, state-of-the-art television studio in a cave. Wouldn't be surprised if the next video has product placement. Death to America. And remember, nobody doesn't like Sarah Lee. Bush said he was misled into thinking there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq because he was provided with faulty intelligence. DNA is a bitch, isn't it? I'll tell you who I feel sorry for. Poor North Korea can't get any respect. Hey, we get a bomb over here. Oh, shut up, we're not talking to you. We're part of the axis of evil, you're just one of the hubcaps. But aren't you cute? Everybody with the same haircut. Besides, what's your delivery system, a muskox? No, we got a 2-stage rocket that can hit California. California, really? Northern California? We should talk. And America was so polarized. You know, I know we're in a blue room here. It's kind of a purple room, actually, in a blue city, in a red country. But it wasn't Bush versus Kerry, it was Bush versus not Bush. That's who John Kerry was, although he never realized it. Hi, my name's John Kerry. Yeah, whatever, here's a knife, get him. No, the other end, you idiot. And you got to admit, the last 2 weeks, the last 2 months of the campaign, Bush turned into President Rain Man before our very eyes. It didn't matter what question you asked. Mr. President, what about the economy? What about stem cell research? What about the privatization of Social Security? Iraq. Yeah, definitely Iraq. Yeah. Saddam, yeah. 911 changed everything. I'm an exit warmonger, just ask my dad. And sir, Mr. President, how much do you think this war is going to cost? About $100. Yeah, definitely. $100. Uh-oh, Wapner. Oh. What are they figuring, $600 billion to rebuild Iraq over a 10-year period? We're giving them universal health care for life. I don't have health care. I'm a schmuck comic. I'm moving to Baghdad. I'll tell jokes at the Warner Theater East. And how are we going to raise the $600 billion to rebuild it? Through a series of tax cuts. Well, the American people want tax cuts. Well, of course they do. The American people also want drive-through nickel beer night. See? The American people want to lose weight by eating bacon. The American people would chew off their own foot if Oprah told them there was liquid gold in their ankle veins. The American people require a warning label on their brake fluid so they don't use it as a dessert topping. The American people love the Home Shopping Network because it's commercial free. You guys got a lot of great comedy ahead of you. I want to thank you for your kind attention.
We're going to have a quick intermission. Go out and enjoy yourselves. Come back. More to come. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, sit down. We're getting ready for part 2, the second half of the comedy jam. Somebody was saying Tony Snow's Deaf Comedy Jam. That is so pathetic. But thank you all. You have more treats ahead. You got professionals and you got some guys who are really good, including Matt Cooper, who's coming up next, of Time Magazine and perhaps sometime soon a federal prison near you.
at all these people. My goodness. How's everyone doing? Good? Great. You're not worried about the snow? You know, the TV news is already in total panic. They got people standing outside, there's no snow, and they're saying, Jim, Doreen, it's not snowing now. But tomorrow morning, forecasters are expecting 8 inches right here in Herndon. It's January, it snows, you know? I mean, they seem surprised every year. Apparently, we're going to get snow this weekend. Everyone doing well? You having a good time? Great. Tonight, be easy on me, tonight is actually my birthday. It's true, I'm 40. It's true. I'm 42, which means in 8 years or 2,920 days, I get an AARP card. I'm 8 years from asking for a senior's discount. It's very sad. Did everyone enjoy the inauguration? Did you have fun? Did you have fun? I don't think there were really enough police around, though. I think you need a little more security. That's what I thought was missing. I mean, something like 100,000 police and 1,200,000 donuts. I mean, it was just... We love our men in uniform, really. No, the inauguration is it's a very special time in American history. Of course, we celebrate the peaceful passing of hors d'oeuvres from one party to another. The whole inauguration, it's really sort of about trying to get into parties you weren't invited to. You're like, I got invited to the Utah Ball. Well, that sounds like fun. And the Johnson Wax tribute to Jim Inhofe. I don't want to go to those. And then you spend the rest of the week trying to get into the good parties. But no, really, it was a great day, and of course, the president gave a stirring speech. Freedom means nothing left to lose. See, that's me and Bobby McGee. Richie Havens at Woodstock singing "Freedom." I knew that one wouldn't work, but it was a stirring speech. You know, I mean, you had to respect it, even if you didn't vote for the president. I mean, when he got up there and said that if you were fighting for freedom, we are standing with you. If your parents have sent you to your room, we'll be there. Maybe the coach took you out of the game for a while and you're on the bench. We're fighting to get you back in. Maybe you're a dog on a leash. You don't need that leash. You ought to be able to run free. Freedom is not God's gift to man, it's God's gift to cats and dogs. No, it was a very, very stirring address. And let's see, what else is going on? Of course, I love the whole thing about the inauguration being there to salute the troops because, you know, when you're eating hors d'oeuvres, you're really saluting our fighting men and those. Oh, this is pretty good. Oh, those guys are working hard. Oh, can I get one more of those? They're pretty good. Okay, I tried. Well, what else is going on? Of course, the tsunami is still, very much in the news, and I love how Bill Clinton has come back to work on relief. It's like, this is an important cause we can all agree on. These victims, especially the Thai people with their long legs, and beautiful way of life, need our help. I guess there's this rumor out there, I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, that Clinton is, might fill out Kofi Annan's term if this oil for food scandal takes him down. And can you imagine Clinton campaigning among the General Assembly to be head of the UN? there was a large Ukrainian community in Hot Springs. I had a neighbor from Congo when I grew up. Do you know Lagos and Pine Bluff were sister cities? That's true. What else? I guess Cheney was, Dick Cheney was on IMS the other morning, and they were talking about Iran, and he said, well, we don't want to get in another war in the Middle East unless we have to. Well, that worked out well last time. That worked out very well last time, really. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I'm going to the notes now. We did that one already. Oh, yes. Now, sorry, that was sort of unprofessional. It's my birthday, come on. I'm serious, I'm not even kidding about that. 42 fucking years old. But I feel 60. So, you know, I look at it that way. Well, has anyone thought about what it would have been like if we were celebrating the Kerry inaugural this week? Kind of interesting, right? Ooh, kind of a red-blue. Let's get some hands. How many blue Stater Kerry supporters, Democrat? Whoa, this is very evenly divided. And Bush, red state. Oh. A few more and more voluble. But, so I know the red staters all have this nightmare vision of the Kerry inaugural, you know, the late-term abortion ball. You know, the transgender caucus salute. You know, and their vision of John Kerry, they have the nightmare vision of John Kerry getting up there. My fellow Americans, mes Américains. Today we celebrate freedom. Aujourd'hui nous célébrons la liberté. I know, it's just a nightmare. Just imagine if it had happened. Oh my God. Oh, it's so scary. We'd still be in the courts, though. Still be counting that Ohio stuff. Somehow I don't think John Edwards has helped himself, though, for 2008. Do you get the sense there's a big Edwards surge out there? I mean, you know, Cheney kicked his butt in the debate, and you're a billionaire trial lawyer. Get a decent haircut. I'm sorry, you don't need the Walton's haircut. You don't need the John Boy haircut. Of course, I loved watching the inaugural coverage on TV, because you had Chris Matthews on MSNBC. Did anyone watch it by any chance? He was very, okay, that's the MSNBC audience right there. About. I can't imagine why McEnroe went off the air. No, he's really, you know, he's so smart and fun, but, you know, the stuff he was saying, I mean, it was just like the weirdest free association. He's like, wow, there's Orrin Hatch, and Laura Bush looks incredible. Is that Winter White or taupe? When did Dunkin' Donuts start selling lattes? I always thought they had the best coffee. Literally, those are things he said. He's a troubled man. What else? Well, you know, what is it like to be Al Gore this week? You know, I've got a theory of Al Gore, which is that, and kind of to explain his transformation since he left office, his seeming anger during the campaign. Remember when he'd scream at those Howard Dean rallies and stuff? I think he is the only man in America who hates Bill Clinton and George W. Bush equally. And it's just got him in a total mindfuck. That hillbilly's libido stole my birthright. That draft dodging fundamentalist nutcase stole my election. I think it would be very hard to beat Al Gore. Anyway, you've been a great audience. Enjoy the rest of the show, and thanks for being nice to me.
And now from Vanity Fair, Christopher Hitchens.
I didn't see what's so funny. I don't find it amusing at all. There's this mullah and a rabbi and a priest, and they walk into a bar together in New York, and the barman says, "What is this, some kind of joke?" They say that brevity is the soul of wit. I think I just disproved that. I think jokes should be long, don't you? I don't think they can easily be political. Politics isn't very funny. I don't find it amusing any longer. I think what one needs is actually not better politicians, but a better electorate and some better journalists. Well, you guys just laughed at donkey and elephant jokes. Jesus. And at people who brought cue cards. The last time I did this was at the Improv, and I was beaten by Joe Lieberman with cue cards. How funny was that? It's like a Larry King interview. You know the questions are going to be tough. He says, "So, you got all the money in the world, you have the supermodel on your arm, you have the book contract, the MacArthur Genius Award. What the fuck is that? What the hell is that about?" Then you know you have a tough question from a member of the press. And people don't even listen to the answers. You know, people don't hear what they're saying. Jimmy Hoffa Jr., when he first ran for president of the Teamsters Union, they said, "What's your ambition?" He said, "I want to follow in my father's footsteps." I heard him say there was no supplementary question, no follow-up. So what I'm going to have to do to, beguile the weary hour is, I've no intention of being brief, by the way. The brevity bit is over. I think all filth is local. And that a joke isn't a joke unless it's at somebody's expense. So there's this guy fighting traffic driving home in Los Angeles. Really tough on the freeway, and he knows he's going to be late home, so he picks up his car phone and he punches in the number. The voice answers, "Sí." He says, "Teresa, sí, señor. Just tell the missus, would you wake her up? I got something to tell her." She leaves the phone, comes back, says, "Mrs. in bedroom, señor." Well, wake her up, I've got to talk to her. "No, Mrs. in bedroom with other hombre." Okay, she's still fighting this fucking traffic. He says, "Okay, where are you? In the den?" She says, "See? Look at my desk. Pull open the left-hand drawer." Have you pulled it open? "See? Is there a gun there?" "See?" Okay, take the gun, go upstairs, shoot her, shoot him, get on the extension. "See? Long, fighting the traffic, juggling the whole thing, and finally the extension's picked up, and he says, "Teresa, is it you?" She said, "See, have you killed them?" "See." "Okay, now I want you to open the window and throw both of the bodies out into the swimming pool." "No swimming pool here, senor." "Is this 3102? Now, that you'll notice is a clean joke. If a joke can't be short, if it can't be long, if it can't be clean, it should be at someone's expense. It's like limericks. Most people think limericks are going to be filthy. That can be where they make their big mistake. There was a young engine driver named Hunt who was given an engine to shunt, saw a runaway truck, by yelling out, "Duck," saved the life of the fellow in front. You see, that's what you want, isn't it? You wanted that to be filthier. Well then, there are these two onions, male onion, female onion, rolling along together, bang into each other. instant rapport. A torrential affair begins, they can't get enough of each other. Pretty soon, an onion bonding has occurred. Not long after that, they think to tie the knot, get together, make it legal. And their union is blessed, you'll be glad to hear. And a little baby onion, tiny little cocktail onion is born. And this means, of course, that the father onion has to put in more time at the shipyard, extra shifts. You know what it's like. Mother onion, much encumbered with other work around the place, and this and that, and the baby onion isn't as well supervised as he might have been, and as baby onions will, the door being left open one day, rolls out, across the sidewalk, right into the path of a sodding great lorry, flattened out, rushed to hospital. Team of surgeons fights all night to save his life. Mother onion, out of it, heavily sedated. No more, can't take it, gone. Father onion rolling up and down the corridor outside. The emergency room going like this, wearing a little groove in the ghastly hospital carpet. Towards dawn, the flap doors open and the surgeon comes out pulling the mask from his head and dashing the perspiration from his eyes and says to the father onion, who rolls up anxiously and says, well, what? Tell me, is he what? He says, no, he'll live, but I'm afraid he's going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life. Neither clean, neither completely clean, nor filthy, nor, you'll be noticing, I hope, nor short, nor brief. No cue cards, right? Nothing. Just a second here. So you wouldn't believe how dry it is backstage. So, I have to leave you with this, because you have been a really great audience, I must say. Even though you will laugh at anything. This is the longest joke I know, and I'm giving it to you. It's a kind of a free gift. Anyone who remembers this joke will know how to tell it at any length from now on. You can build in new wings to it and new extensions to it, if you want. I'll give you the condensed version. Picture, if you will, the romance that kindles between a young man and a young woman. Her eyes first caught by his extraordinary courtesy. He will always take her coat. He will always open the door. He's always unfailingly polite. He's a man of extraordinary consideration. He finally talks her into the sack. You can build in the extensions later if you want. So extraordinary is the convulsion of pleasure to which he brings her, and the attention that he pays in order to bring this off, if you will, that she lies hardly daring to speak and says, I never knew that it could be this way with a man and a woman. I just wish there was something I could do to please you as you've pleased me. And he says, well, as a matter of fact, there is something you could do if you cared to. And she said, well, just name it. And he said, sort of, I kind of wish you'd give me a blowjob. And she says, no, I wish you'd said anything but that. Something tells me that if I do that, it won't be the same between us. You won't respect me. You won't admire me, esteem me, revere me in the same way. You won't defer to me. So he's a gentleman. He takes it very well. This is the first date. It goes on like that. It goes on like that for for a year or so, and it's always the same. And you can do your. And every time she says, "I can't tell you," and if only, and he says, "Well, actually, since you mention it," and no, but she says, "You won't. You just. I know it won't be the same. You won't respect." They get married. The honeymoon night is a torrential tribute by him to her, of every conceivable attention. But in the meantime, always the door held open, always the taxi door held open, always the coat taken, always the deference and the tenderness. But even on a honeymoon night, she won't. She just won't, because respect is a big thing. The 10th anniversary comes. See how I'm leaving you the room now. The silver wedding. I think we're talking about the pearl anniversary. Takes her to Cancun or Cayman Islands, I don't know, somewhere beautiful. The finest suite, the limo, the thoughtful, well-chosen gifts, the door held open, the attention, the courtesy, and the unfailing pleasuring. And finally, she lies back and she says, again, in a dream of bliss, "You've given me all these decades of love and care and tenderness and sex. And I just wish, if only I could, requite this in some way." And he says, "Well, you know what? I know I've mentioned this before, but if you could just see your way to..." And she thinks, really, you know, why not? What can it hurt? So, in what is still an almost maidenly manner, she falls to, she does her best, and it's pretty good. And then it's over and she thinks, "No, that was wonderful. I should have learned to please him like this before. And I should never have worried about his attentions, his courtesy, his deference." And they're lying there unable to speak in this dream of mutual assurance, and the phone rings. And it rings and rings and rings and keeps on ringing in their suite, and he says, "Aren't you going to get the phone, cocksucker?" Well, it's been real, and you've been very patient, and I salute you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Now co-creator of The Daily Show, Emmy Award-winning comic, A. Whitney Brown.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tony. I'm A. Whitney Brown, and someday I hope to be the Whitney Brown. I am a little nervous because I have the fear of speaking in public. I know it's ridiculous, but it's a common fear. It's the most common fear among adult Americans, second only to the fear of being trapped in an enclosed space with a Catholic priest. But it's a natural fear, and I believe it's nature's way of making sure that there's always more people in the audience than there is on the stage, because imagine if it was the other way around, if the most common fear was of watching someone speak in public. It would be ridiculous. All of you would be jammed up here on the stage, and me and Hitchens would be out in the audience sweating bullets for you, and it just would be ridiculous, and it wouldn't work out. So anyway, you can't live by your fears. You have to try and overcome your fears. Because if you let your fears control you, you end up living in a gated community in Arizona and voting for Pat Buchanan, and nobody wants that. That's not a good way to live. Because fear is selfishness. And we are selfish, all of us. We all live in a universe that revolves around ourselves. We all live in a pre-Copernican universe. I include myself. In fact, I'm thinking of including only myself. I know that my universe revolves sadly around me because someone stole my bike. It was a crappy little bike. But I got a really good deal on it. I bought it on the street. It was hot, and so I was really sad. Someone stole my bike, some evildoer. So I was walking home. I had to walk because some person stole my bike. And on the way home, I was getting even with this person. I was torturing them. I had them staked out to anthills. I was driving bamboo splints under their fingernails. I didn't know about Abu Ghraib back then. Or I would have had a pile of naked bike stealers stacked up next to a pile of suspected naked bike stealers. And maybe even another pile of the relatives of suspected naked bike stealers. Imagine that we are now the nation that tortures our enemies. Imagine that. We are the bad guys. And some of it's legal. Waterboarding. You know, dunking, waterboarding where they put you on, that's the new one that's okay. That's legal policy. We can strap people down to a board and put them underwater and they think they're drowning. They called it dunking. Now I know people criticize the administration for this, but let's take a look at the other side. Think of all the witches they uncovered with that technique during the Middle Ages. So I'm not going to be the one to criticize. So I'm walking home, torturing this evildoer who stole my bike. And I get home and I'm watching the History Channel, or the Hitler Channel as I like to call it. And of course, Hitler was on, Hitler's Pets or Hitler's Mistresses, some show about Hitler. And it turns out, it's all I ever have. It turns out that he was a really bad guy. It was the upshot. He was like very bad. Not as bad as Saddam Hussein, but in the same, you know, sort of ilk. Because Saddam Hussein was really evil. He was the new Hitler, they said. I'll tell you how evil Saddam was. He's the kind of guy that if you sell him nerve gas, what does he do? He uses it. That man put a stain on the name of makers and sellers of nerve gas that may take generations. He blackened the entire nerve gas industry. That's how evil a man he was. So anyway, I'm watching Hitler be evil on it, and it struck me, this was one of the evilest men in history. And yet in all my life, I have never had that visceral response. God, if I could just get my hands on that Hitler. I never felt that way. Now be honest, none of you have. Or Mao or Stalin or any of them. Never felt that way. I know he's evil and all that. I read it in the books, but never was like, God, oh, that Hitler. Why? Because he never stole my bike. Now that sadly is how I know that my universe revolves around me. And because I'm an American, and we are all that self-centered. We are so self-centered that in order to make ourselves feel this much safer, not even to be this much safer, but just to feel this much safer, we are willing to kill tens, scores of thousands of innocent people, innocent Iraqis, on the moral principle that collateral damage doesn't really count. They die, they get killed, you know, and they're accidental. And by accident, I mean we dropped a bomb in their neighborhood. The moral principle being that it's okay to kill innocent people if it makes their neighbors better off. That's the moral principle behind that. All right. I just don't want that moral principle getting around in my neighborhood. I love my neighbors. Without them, I wouldn't have cable. I just don't want that principle getting around. But it's been worth it. Because Americans, and I love this country. I vacation here. I love my country because we're a well-informed people. What was Saddam Hussein thinking when he attacked us on 9/11? Didn't he know we'd find out? But the upshot has been worth it. All of this blood and murder and death. Because we now have a free Iraq. Something I've dreamed of my entire life. So that my brother-in-law, who is 57 years old, a Purple Heart Vietnam vet, with a 5-year-old girl, is now in Iraq, but he has a safe job. He's training police. 57. A free Iraq. What's it like there? They can have any kind of gun they want, pay no taxes. They shoot their candidates. They don't even wait for them to get elected. They blow up the police station every week. That sounds like a damn paradise to me. But that's just me, because I'm not afraid of terrorists. I'm afraid of cops. I've never been pulled over by a terrorist. I've never been audited by a terrorist. I've never had my ass kicked in the back room by a terrorist. This is America, the land of the free. Do you realize we only have 2 million people in prison? We're the freedom lovers. Of course, that is more than China or Russia, and a lot of them deserve to be there because they can't read. About half of them. And if you can't read, you're going to get in trouble in America because you're going to miss important information that you need to function. Information like these premises under video surveillance. Now that is a lot of big words right there. So I guess my point is that, I forget what my point was, but there really is no point. But books, that was it, yes. We need more people who read books because they give us two things we need. Well, they give us, well, they inform us. Other countries are better off than we are when it comes to their illiterates because we have so many of them. In Japan, if you can't read, they put you to work translating VCR instructions into English. Here, you end up giving directions at gas stations. It's anyway, so I forget what the point was, but I just want to say I've enjoyed my little talk. My time is up, and remember, you're either with us or you're with the torturers. Thank you.
And now from the 27th Congressional District of California, Representative Brad Sherman.
Hello, I'm Brad Sherman from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks. One thing has mystified Washington for about 8 years. How did this guy ever get elected to Congress? Now, many ascribe it to my exuberant and promiscuous distribution of cheap plastic trinkets. That is to say, I hand out these plastic combs to everyone in the San Fernando Valley on the theory that each of them have more use for a comb than I do. But my tenure in Congress has more complex origins than that. You see, I started my career as a CPA. My friends came to me and said, Brad, you need to find an occupation held in lower public esteem. So, of course, I went to law school. After I practiced law for a few years, my friends came to me and said, Brad, how many lawyers does it take to roof a house? I was gratified to think that we lawyers could do anything quite that useful. Said, Brad, if you want to roof a house, you only need one lawyer, if you slice him real thin. A building materials joke. Said, Brad, lawyers are truly loathed, but it's not low enough for you. What did they want? Politician? Not low enough. Used cars? Reporter? Not low enough. California is the only state with an elected revenue commission. With their help, I became simultaneously a politician and a tax collector. I had reached the appropriate level. I went up to Sacramento to use my technical skills to deal with tough tax issues, but that was the year that for the first time, at the assistance of our governor, Pete Wilson, we expanded the sales tax to cover a very few food items. snack cakes, snack crackers, potato chips, corn chips, a few items like that. My first job in government was to write a tax regulation defining the difference between a cupcake and a muffin. I realized I had defrauded the voters. I had told them my background best fit the challenges of the job. They should not have elected Brad Sherman. They should have elected Martha Stewart. But then I faced another issue, and this has never been done before, and Grover Norquist is going to be out here soon. He'll back me up on this. We had to write a tax regulation defining the word cracker. My friend, the state tax administrator of Georgia, gave me a call, and I had to say, Bubba, not that kind of cracker. But believe it or not, I was the first state tax commissioner to face a theological issue. Is matzah a cracker? I went to my rabbi. Seems that matzah is mentioned in the Torah 77 times, always as the bread of affliction, never as the cracker of affliction. So I go back to my board, I figure this one's handled, and some pesky staffer, and I see pesky staffers all over this bill, some pesky staffer hands me a box of Manischewitz matzah miniatures, cracker-sized matzah. I go back to my rabbi. He said, Brad, you know, I don't really know everything about ancient times, but I'll tell you, I do know one thing. As the people of Israel gathered and fled from the hosts of the Pharaoh, they were not popping bite-sized matzahs into them. So in spite of being the first state tax administrator ever lobbied by the Manischewitz Company, I had to write a tax regulation, full-size matzahs, bread of affliction, not subject to tax, matzah miniatures, classified as a cracker, subject to tax. But remember, I came from a tax planning background. I used to have private clients as a tax attorney. I said, I've got the tax plan for you. You buy the full-size matzahs, sit on them, get the smaller pieces without paying the tax. In any case, we decided, look, this was a regressive tax, and Mr. Norquist may not agree with me, but you can actually protest against a regressive tax. And so we started a statewide effort to get this thing repealed by getting people to mail ding-dongs to Pete Wilson. We got a lot of publicity, but after about a week and a half, he came out and said he'd only gotten 7 ding-dongs and a squashed bag of Fritos. I was in the ding-dong doldrums determining my ding-dong dispatching a dismal disaster. And then my own staff came to me and said, we've sorted the incoming mail. We just created a stack of those people who in their letters said, and we've mailed a ding-dong to Governor Wilson. And it was a huge stack. And I was angry, and I was about to call a press conference because I thought the governor was dissing my ding-dong dispatching. And then, look, I was angry. I was going to accuse the governor of something no governor had ever been accused of, namely ding-dong denial. And I was going to end on what I guess would have been a low note, yelling at the governor, Pete Wilson, kiss my ding-dong. No, I didn't, but I never said that because we found out what was happening. The governor's own staff was purloining the ding-dongs, stockpiling them against bad times. Poor Pete was an innocent victim of ding-dong diversion. So we put together a plan. We passed Proposition 163. We abolished this California snack tax, and we made California safe for matzah miniatures. I returned to the obscurity that this state tax commission entitled me to until my congressman announced his retirement from a swing district. The Democrats were in a tizzy. How are we going to hold this seat? What kind of candidate can we Democrats unite behind? Naturally, they picked a tax collector. And that was the key to victory, because as a tax collector, I had the slogan, send Brad to Washington, or he may come visit you. That's how I got here. Thank you very much.
And now from Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, Mr. Barry Lynn.
Thank you, Tony. And just because I do believe in the separation of church and state, of course, Tony Snow and all of his friends at the Fox News Channel spent the entire month of December attempting to convince America that I literally had started a war against Christmas. And because that isn't true, I wanted to clarify something tonight by not only indicating that I personally love Christmas, but that some people like me enough to give me Christmas presents. So I brought a couple of my favorites. For example, this one. This happens to be something called Wine Out. It's a red wine stain remover. Sounds good. Then you see that it has over 400 applications. If you spill red wine on yourself 400 times, you do not need this. You need rehab. Now, another thing I got, of course, the Ann Coulter talking action figure. Now, wait. Okay. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Mine is broken. Now, it is true that if you touch her in a certain place, and we are not going there, but if you touch her in a certain place, she does talk. But this thing does not, prior to talking, do this. The hair flip. So mine's obviously defective and was probably sent to me by an enemy. Every time I appear on the Fox News Channel, of course, if Wonkette gets hate mail, you ought to see my hate mail. I get a lot of it. I get a lot of it every time I appear on Fox. Here's one I just got. If the founding fathers of this country were alive today, they would have Barry Lynn on trial for witchcraft. Now, you know, I hope that when Attorney General John Ashcroft leaves office in a couple of weeks, the next time he wants to communicate with me, he'll just pick up the phone. You know, a lot of people are upset about me and my policies and what I stand for. In 1 week this summer, Jerry Falwell called me a left-wing thug, and Pat Robertson called me a ferret, which I think is just one step up the evolutionary ladder from being a rat, not that Pat Robertson accepts evolution. And when you think about this evolution debate we're having in so many parts of the country, it's kind of frightening to me, because a large number of Americans believe that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, which would mean that humans and dinosaurs existed at the same time, which would mean that the Flintstones are actually documentaries. You know, I get so upset with conservatives. I mean, I like conservatives, and I've worked with conservatives, but they're afraid of literally everything. Of course, just yesterday, the New York Times reported that Dr. James Dobson believes that SpongeBob SquarePants is actually gay, following in a long tradition of Jerry Falwell, who thinks that Tinky Winky is gay. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a group called the Traditional Values Coalition, led by the Reverend Lou Sheldon, who actually is trying to get the Harry Potter books off of the shelves of school libraries. And it's not for the reason you might think. It's not just because they think it promotes occultism, although they do, but they also say that Harry Potter promotes homosexuality and abortion. What does that mean? How could they reach that conclusion? Do they think, is J.K. Rowling's writing a new book, Harry Potter and the Morning After Pill? I don't know about it. Shrek 2, they didn't like that. Why? Because that communicates a message of transgenderism and gender confusion. Why? Because the wolf from Little Red Riding Hood is shown not once but twice wearing grandma's flannel pajamas. Can you imagine how upset that group would be if that wolf had been decked out by Victoria's Secret? They're already having a big conclave, the cultural conservatives, at least next week. They're telling people, even though the Super Bowl isn't until February 6th, they're suggesting all conservatives charge up the TiVo to make sure they capture it, and then at the same time put the FCC on speed dial on their telephone in anticipation of things happening. It's not just the media that bothers these people, it's real life that bothers them. That's why they got into this whole debate over same-gender marriage. The argument was, if gay people are allowed to get married, those heterosexual people, their marriages will break up. Look, I've been married to the same woman for 35 years, and I can tell you that if the two gay guys in our neighborhood are allowed to get married, paroxysms of lust are not going to fly into me. Now, if Angelina Jolie moves into the neighborhood, no, let's talk about yesterday. Man, it was really great. There was a lot of parades. It was really exciting. And it could have been a little more spectacular, though. Imagine if the inaugural address had been given in 3D international television. And imagine if the first family had not walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, but all been on one of those hover discs from Star Wars. That would have been great, but it didn't happen. And as Don Rumsfeld might put it, you've got to inaugurate with the $40 million you have, not the $400 million you wish corporate America had given to you. We're already starting to see, talking about money, some of the indicators from the new budget. A lot of us are a little shocked about it. They're going to be cutting more children's health care programs. They're going to be cutting more education programs. But yes, the president is committed to the mission to Mars. You know, if George Bush is so interested in going to Mars, why didn't he pack up in October and just go? Another thing they want to spend money on. Here's another thing they wanted to spend money. A couple of people would like that. Ralph Nader, you here. The other thing they want to spend money on is abstinence only before marriage sex education programs. It doesn't matter that they don't work. They want to spend money on them. And it's really a tough sell in 2005 to teach abstinence only. How tough is it? It's so tough that Armstrong Williams wouldn't even take $2.5 million to promote that on his radio and television programs. It is 2005. We're looking forward to the future. I kind of wish Dan Glickman was here from the Motion Picture Association of America, because I wanted to get a rumor clarified. I heard that Mel Gibson is in fact working on a new film, that he's going to direct an epic-length version of My Pet Goat. And I understand he's being lobbied by the White House heavily to do that, because George Bush said that although he read that story to those Florida school children, of course, as the World Trade Center was literally being attacked, he was a little confused by the story and was hoping that a graphic visual display would help him understand what it was all about. All right, I gotta go, but I want to do something that nobody's apparently done. No one's done. No one said tonight the one thing that everyone should close every speech in this city by saying, God, or gods, or no God, bless America. Thank you very much.
Now, impressionist and comedian Jim Morris.
Tepid applause. But I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And that's the way we're going to run this world. And I appreciate it. There's a new breeze blowing out there, and we're breaking new wind. And we had a great first term. We did. We're going to have a great second term. We had a great first term. What do you say? Just look at the record. And you'll see. But I want to continue to be a uniter, not a divider. I am a uniter. I'm a joker. I'm a smoker. I'm a midnight toker. And I think it was best put in the words of our great philosopher. I think it was Rene Descartes, or René Descartes, or maybe it was Neil Diamond. When he said, I think, therefore, I am, I said. or something like that. It's all right there in the Bible if you just read it. Laura and I read the Bible every night. And it states right there in the first page, in the beginning God aided the heaven and the earth. Well, I supported him on this. This was a wondrous creation, an inspired effort. And we have a mandate, although I certainly don't like the sound of that word, mandate. Dick Cheney's daughter had a mandate, but she still prefers women. It doesn't matter whether we're Republican or Democrat or black or Asian or Hispanic or others on the fringe. Women. We're all Americans. Yeah, I saw him yesterday. He looked. Did you see how the motorcade was pulling right by those protesters? This time around, they gave the protesters their own bleachers and everything. And I wrote down some of their chants. Just as the president's motorcade was passing through, no justice, no peace, U.S. out of the Middle East. And I'm thinking, is there going to be a confrontation here? George Bush, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Hold on. Stop the car. I would have loved to see, stop the car. He gets out of the car. Hey, Bush, what do you say? How many kids did you kill today? Well, I ain't done counting yet. I'm a compassionate conservative. I put them out of their goddamn misery. Yeah. Tough campaign, though. John Kerry did rather well in the debates, but didn't come through in the final tally. Or as Tom Brokaw would say, tally. Tally. I'm sorry to see him go. Tom Brokaw. Hey, Tom, what's it going to be? Another couple of books, another mini-series or something? No, actually, many Americans don't realize I have an affinity for the Great White Way. I'm getting into musical theater. They're bringing the show Mary Poppins to Broadway, and I'm playing the role of Bert the Chimney Sweep. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So far, so good, but I have not yet mastered the umdiddle-I. Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting, asking the question, why am I so friggin' intense? I'm sorry to see him go, too, next March, because, I've always thought he was going to have a nervous breakdown on the air, and that's why I watch CBS, so I can be there when it happens. Viagra, the wonder drug from Pfizer Pharmaceutical. Is it a cure for impotence? Does it work? Let me check. Yes, it does. And in a recent survey of erectile challenged gentlemen, over 80% of the men said they were thrilled to have a pole. A survey, come on, I told them I'd work clean here for all of my 6 minutes. No, they're cutting us up because we're running along, and I hope you've had a great time out there. And here's a quick impression for you. Ted Koppel singing The Doors. You know, it would be untrue, I would be a liar if I were to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Oh, come on, baby, light my fire. Yeah. Well, I was talking about John Kerry and the debates. He did rather well. I wonder if he was coached by Bill Clinton, who's, we saw him yesterday. I just want to say one thing to you people out there. God bless you. Whatever you think of me, remember this. Whatever you think of me, I kept every promise I intended to keep. And we did bring about change. We tried to do whatever it was we could possibly do to try to see to it in our 8 years, to try to see to it that what needed to get done got done, so that one day we could sit back and tell our kids and our grandkids that when it came time to doing what we thought we had to do,
we did what we needed to get done. What the hell did I just say?
It was nice seeing it. It's great seeing him up and about and healthy, getting his health back. Of course, the president's father was there with Barbara, you know, and I'm very proud of my son. Let me just tell you, hey, you know something? W came to me the other day, said, I said, you got reelected. Why are you asking me this question? He said, Dad, how do you feel I'm doing? I said, you're doing a bang-up job. You know, you just got to stick to the script there because, you know, I get all my best guys writing all the best shit for you. Stick to the script. Now, because my son, he gets off that, starts ad-libbing. Is that what they call it there? Ad-libbing and mangling words, and his tongue starts wagging, and it's a very uncomfortable sight. And I told him, come on, W. Come on, people are going to think you were brought up by someone who couldn't finish a complete sentence, but you're doing okay. Okay? Doing okay. Sorry to get into, it was a tough campaign. It was a tough campaign, the debates. We believe, John Kerry, we are the optimists, we are the can-do people, we are the knights who say nee. Not nay. I say send away the naysayers, send away the nincompoops, send away the knick-knack paddywhackers. Let's not throw the dog another bone. That's what's at stake in this election. First thing he said I can understand, steak. I think we know a bit about steak in Texas. And as far as all this it is a dog-eat-dog world out there. We just can't sit around licking ourselves. We got to mark our territory, ward off intruders, and attack preemptively if necessary. I wonder who John Kerry got advice from preparing the debates. I was thinking, that's a shitty segue, actually. I just wanted to do my Al Sharpton impression because it's fun to do. I always root for the guys who will never get elected, you know, like Ross Perot. Wonderful, I tell you, when Margot and I first arrived in Dallas, we had all our belongings in the trunk of the car. Of course, those belongings included the Hope Diamond, the Fabergé egg, and 2 kilos of uncut heroin, but... we started with just that, but I never hired a spin doctor, never needed a spin doctor. Once hired a witch doctor, he shrunk my head, but my ears stayed the same size. But Al Sharpton advising John Kerry before the debates.
If you got asked a question about free trade, you say, I was for NAFTA before, but America's been losing jobs before NAFTA and after NAFTA, so if I become president, which is what I'm after, I won't change NAFTA unless I have to. What?
And I have notes here, but the evening's running on, so I will just leave you with this. And this is the former President of the United States visiting us in his spirit. Of course, that would be the 40th President of the United States. God bless you all. This is, regardless of whether you happen to be on one side of the aisle or the other, I'll have you know that we have accomplished a great deal in our society. Remember when I went to that wall and I demanded of the communist dictator there? I stood there before the wall and I said, Mr. Dung, tear down this wall. And not long after that, we began to see the reunification of China. They're all coming together now. Mainland China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, the Mandarins, the Cantonese, the Szechuans, the Hunans, and even the takeouts. And while I was there, Nancy and I met with the premier of China. What was his name? Deng Chao? Or maybe, was that what they served us? I don't know. I didn't like the food there. I had just had part of my colon removed. And by that point, I had a semicolon.
But what was his name? I certainly didn't appreciate his holier-than-thou attitude. But let me all leave you with this. This is the greatest land of all. Why, I'll have you all know that back in my day, we never even had fellatio. Oh, no. Back then, we had to do everything by hand.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks for coming out. Thank you.
And now Suhail Khan and Andrew Langer.
Damn thing's wrapped. That's it.
Breaking stuff.
You break, you buy, man.
Hey, good to be here tonight. Let me introduce my good friend, Andrew Langer.
Let me introduce my good friend, Suhail Khan. And for those of you who are going to get confused during this act, Suhail is the one wearing the blue tie.
That's right. That's right. We're the only duo act tonight. Some might call us the twins of comedy. Others, the Uday and Kusei of laughter.
And others might call us the Jenna and Barbara.
Hey, I like Jenna.
You know, we were going to come out here, we were going to get all rah-rah and say, you know, ask who voted for Kerry, who voted for Bush. But we got to be honest with you, we can't see a frickin' thing from up here except for Kerry Houston right here in the front row.
Like the haircut, Kerry. Looks good. No,
Yeah.
but some famous people have played this stage, Andrew.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You had Bob Dylan, James Taylor, David Letterman.
And now Suhail Khan and Andrew Langer.
Yeah, it's kind of like Darwinism, only backwards.
So anyway, you know, it's funny. So we were going to ask who supported Nader and who supported Bush and who supported Kerry. But honestly, you know, as I said, we can't see anything.
Can't see anything, but let me just ask. I mean, the Nader people, come on, you got any Nader supporters out here?
No, they were all trapped by the... Oh, I'm sorry, one guy got in.
See, I like the Nader people. The Nader people are cool, you know. They're all vegan, natural fibers, morally casual.
Attitudes, sure.
Kind of smell vaguely of bong water. They're cool people, you know. They're partiers.
No. They're the first ones to go on the list.
No. They're cool. I like the Nader people. The people that freak me out, the people that go on every list, people that need to be stopped are those conspiracy theorist guys that follow Lyndon LaRouche.
Like you.
No, these guys freak me out. They think everything's controlled by the Council on Foreign Relations, KFC. They think that the Trilateral Commission is beaming signals into their teeth fillings. They're crazy.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because these guys, they'll follow me out of the metro, and I know how to stop them now.
How's that?
I tell them, you know, I'm part of the greatest conspiracy theory of all.
People from Maryland?
No. The Zionist occupational government.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, so...
Hey, our transitions are a little rusty.
No. But anyway, Suhail, I mean, it's not like you know anything about getting stopped by security checkpoints.
Oh, he had to bring up a sore subject, and I got a sore subject. No, my holidays were a little rough. I did a little traveling, and, you know, I don't mind the third or fourth strip search, the anal probing, it's all right. But I gotta say, I'm a traditional guy. Kind of brought up by traditional parents, Catholic school.
Catholic school?
Oh, yeah, hence the uniform. But, I mean, you know, I'm just old-fashioned. Before we get into the body cavity searches, all I say is, sweet talk me. Buy me a drink. Talk to me. Ask me how my day was.
You know, you want to start...
And the worst part is, after, I don't get any calls, no emails, nothing. I feel cheap, used.
You got to start
forgotten.
showing up at the airport and make it easy. You got to start showing up at the airport wearing, you know, your silk robe, your smoking jacket, or at least your ratty old bathrobe.
I'm not easy. I'm not Washingtonian. Come on.
So you had a good holiday?
No, well, my holiday was a little rough, but enough about my social life. How was your holiday, Andrew?
It was good. You know, my wife got me the Star Wars DVD collection. I watched it with my daughter.
Your daughter's like 2 years old, a little young to be exposing her to the full nerd
she really
treatment.
got into it in a big way, except, you know, every time now we're watching CNN and she sees Ted Kennedy, she goes, Daddy, look, Jabba.
Ooh, that's rough. On Jabba.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because we've been watching CNN. I've been noticing these guys around town. I don't know if any of you have seen them, the guys who are now sporting the Tucker Carlson look. You know, the unkept hair, the bow ties, the really, you know, the sort of dapper appearance.
Dapper? Come on.
Well, I mean, all right, not dapper in the Suhail Khan sort of way. I mean,
now
sort of
you're making me blush. No, you
the
can't
Orville,
tell.
The Orville Redenbacher sort of dapper.
I know.
And I want to walk up and I'm like, you know, guys, dude, it's Tucker Carlson.
Seriously, Tucker Carlson can't even get laid with that look.
Speaking of getting laid and dating, Washingtonian's not in the audience, is she?
I think actually I saw her in the back room with former President Bill Clinton.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, they want us to move along.
All right.
So let me just finish with this real quick, if you don't mind. Real quick.
Oh, rough.
No. So there's 1% of Americans out there that their big issue is the war on pornography. These are the folks who their big thing. They're really pissed off that the Justice Department isn't spending enough energy fighting porno producers. And I got to say to these people, hey, didn't you guys get the frickin' memo? We're fighting a war on terror here. I mean, it's not like Osama bin Laden turned to the dark side after watching Weapons of Ass Destruction #3.
Hey, good video.
Thank you all very much for coming out.
And now, Mr. Grover Norquist.
Thank you. Grover Norquist. I'm originally from Massachusetts. Thank you. When I was young, we emigrated to the United States. And I do political work here in D.C., conservative political work, and as you know, there's several strains of conservatism. You're familiar with your standard libertarians. These are the people who, when the nice lady at Walmart says, "Have a nice day," they respond, "Don't tell me what to do." They view speed bumps as the entering wedge of the totalitarian state. But they did, in Reason magazine, provide, I think, my favorite headline in history, and that is when Jane Fonda came out for censorship for feminist reasons, they announced, "It's official, she's wrong about everything." Then you've got the gun nuts, the Second Amendment community. I'm one of them on the board of the National Rifle Association. All right. You may have seen the book we've been promoting in 4th grade, Heather Has Two Hunters. And of course, there's our Executive Vice President, Wayne LaPierre. If your name was Wayne LaPierre at a very young age, you would probably decide it was a good idea to be reasonably heavily armed. And then there are the traditional conservatives. These are the people who get all excited about that idiot Edmund Burke. French Revolution, 1789, everything's going along swimmingly. They're chopping the heads off French people from morning till night. Chop, 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 chop. They're making tremendous progress. And then this Budinsky, Edmund Burke, writes a book entitled Reflections on the Revolution in France, and they stop. For no darn good reason, they stop. And then the traditional conservatives have the nerve to decide or announce that the French Revolution was a failure. Of course it was. It was a failure of half measures. Who knows what we could have accomplished if they'd had a little stick-to-itiveness with this project. Certainly, visiting Euro Disney would be more pleasant. And the world price of soap would be significantly higher. But I don't want to pick on the French all night. I went to Paris recently, went to the Musée d'Orsay, the museum across from the Louvre. They had a wonderful exhibit of Impressionism. And I'm walking along looking at all the pictures, and my lady friend says, no, you got to stop and linger over each of these pictures. And I explained that while some people have studied under Evelyn Woods to get the speed reading course, I studied with her brother, Bubba Wood, and he had the rapid art appreciation course. So that I could just walk right past these Impressionist paintings and pick up everything that was necessary. I can do the Louvre in 2 hours and 45 minutes. If I have more comfortable shoes, I can do it in about 2.5 hours. I'll give you lesson 1 just for free. You look at the painting, and then you think you have to walk up 6 feet and read the little bronze plaque, which says, "Lady with orange." And then the next one, orange on table, lady and orange on table. Skip that, just keep moving. This works until you get to Cubism, and you say, oh, that's a cow on a horse. and then you look up and it says, no, lady with orange. The French are fine, but they do get a little superior thing going, and they start whining at you that American culture is no good, and they start in on how professional wrestling is fixed. And I suggest, look, when was the last time you saw Macbeth? How did it end compared to the time you saw it before? Does Macbeth ever get to win? When you go to the ballet and see Cinderella, does the prince ever go home with one of the stepsisters? These things are fixed too. So then they switch over and say, well, we read this study that half of Americans can't find France on a map. And I suggest that this is not a particularly important life skill. I have been to France. It has never required me to find it on a map. You go to the very nice people at United Airlines, and they pay somebody good money to find France on a map for you. It would, in fact, be somewhat disconcerting if, while you're getting that helpful advice about how to put a seatbelt on, one of the pilots came back and said, anybody here go to high school and learn how to find France on a map? High school trigonometry is another thing. There is no trigonometry in the real world. There is no metric system in the real world. If you walk out of high school and you go past that little sign that says drug-free zone, which is funny in its own way, on the other side of that sign, no trigonometry, no metric system. They do teach you some useful stuff, math, for instance. I'm going to leave you with a bipartisan 2 numerical sequences. Okay, you probably recognize the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bill Clinton listing the 10 Commandments. Then we do 3, we close up with 3, 7, and 9. John Ashcroft going through the Bill of Rights. Thank you.
And now, the final act of the night, the proprietor, the creator, the writer of the Daily Howler, Bob Summerby.
Final act. How many of you feel you've suffered enough? Come on, Vice. Round of applause. And how about, on behalf of all the performers tonight, a round of applause for our host tonight, Tony Snow. Tony Snow! Tony had better things he could have done tonight, as he's been mentioning for the last 3 hours. Well, I'm just here to give a quick close to this wonderful evening we've enjoyed, and we want to thank you for coming out and having such a great time. And let me just say, I mean, we're here to celebrate this tremendous inauguration. Let me just congratulate Republicans in the crowd as the winners this time. Give yourselves a round of applause. The Republicans. But I thought, as a Democrat, I would give the Democratic rebuttal to yesterday's unusual speech. Democrats, are you out there also? We stay up later. I'll tell you, as a Democrat, I have to say, and you know, we're all friends here tonight, but as a Democrat, I have to say, the inauguration really made us look back on the Clinton years and see how innocent they really were. Whoever thought would be swearing in a president where it all depends on what the meaning of torture is. Condi told the Senate she can't define it, but she later said, I know it when I experience it. That was after her questioning by Barbara Boxer. Barbara Boxer, that was mud wrestling, let's be honest. And she didn't have the good goofy statements by Condi. Come on, who does the research? But that Bush speech, I'll tell you, the ones I really felt sorry for last night were the conservative pundits on TV. the ones who had to pretend they weren't scared shitless by what Bush had said. Peggy Noonan panicked and ran this morning. Really, I understand even Cheney is frightened of Bush now, so he's no longer disclosing the location to him. So there's a turnaround. But the speech itself, I've tried to decipher it. Do I understand correctly we are re-invading the Falkland Islands? Is that what I'm... Fredonia has grown restless again. It's a kind of an unusual approach to the world. Some people said it was a little vague, but I'll tell you, if you had the specifics this president has, you'd be vague in your speeches also. Now, the journalists had a hard time knowing what to say about it. Headline in the Post, an ambitious president advances his idealism. Advances his idealism. That's because there's a rule at the Post. You can't use the word lunacy in a front page headline. No. We're all one here tonight. We're all friends. But, anyway, we've come to the end of a wonderful evening. I thought I would take a couple of quick questions. Many of the other comedians wouldn't share their stand on the issues with you. Very quickly, anyone, when I give you the signal, because I really want to lay it on the line for you. We face problems together as a people. Just throw out any issue you're worried about, and I'll share my stand on the issue. Real quick, go ahead.
Indecency.
Okay, gun control. Thank you. I want to lay it right on the line for you, sir. I'm not sure where I stand on the gun control issue. I think I stand with the NRA with their new slogan. You've heard it. Guns don't kill people. Our members do. That is so true. Real quick, another issue, and I'll throw out my stand.
You're right.
Okay, health care. Thank you. I want to get to all of them, all your questions. I'm going to lay it right on the line for you real quickly, ladies and gentlemen, and let me explain before you boo. I favor Canadian-style health care for this great country. Let me explain what I mean by that. By Canadian-style health care, that's health care where the federal government provides all the health services with the bills to be paid by the taxpayers of Canada. I feel if we can't make Canada pay for our health care, what do we have an army for? So, simple, common sense solutions that bring the people together. I'm going to let you throw one more at me, and I'll share my stand on the issue.
You're right.
Say it again. Prayer in the schools. I thought that's what you said. Whenever I get your question, ma'am, I think back to Senator Lieberman in the last election when he said, I don't support prayer in the schools. I do support a moment of silence. And let me tell you, I used to be a junior high teacher. And if I could have gotten a moment of silence, I would still be in the classroom today. Real quickly, I'm going to leave you with one little thought. We all face this tremendous war on the Falklands that we're now engaged in. Not that it's wrong. I think we're taking the wrong approach to those who oppose us around the world, the fundamentalists. We need to teach them to read their sacred texts the way we have learned to read ours. They still read their texts as if every word were precisely true. We've learned that our sacred texts are all about poetry. Isn't that right, Barry Lynn? You know how the way we read our scripture. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Surely they can't mean that literally. Ladies and gentlemen, Republicans, Democrats, those who can't make up your mind, happy 4 years, and we'll see you 4 years from now. Thank you. And thanks again to Tony Snow. Here he comes.
Well, not quite yet, Bob. Now, Von Ververs of the Political Hotline.
Let's hear it for all of our wonderful performers tonight. All those people who had the guts to come up here and perform. Fantastic. Tony Snow as the MC. He was absolutely wonderful, as he always is. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank some special people. Americans United for their support, the Bear Corporation, Corvus Communications, the U.S. Tobacco Association, and the National Beer Wholesalers. Who doesn't want to thank them? Everybody, thank you for coming out and helping the hotline try to celebrate the joy of politics as we do every day in our document. I hope you all had a great night. Drive safely, drive soberly, and we'll see you in 4 years. Thank you.